Veterans Affairs Minister Matt Keogh says the government will be responding to the interim report of the Royal Commission into veterans' suicide as soon as it can. The government says it's already responding to some of the more disturbing evidence presented to the inquiry. Joining me live is Shadow Assistant Minister for Defence, Phillip Thompson. And Phillip, of course, I'm speaking to you today as a former soldier as well. First of all, we've got to point out this is not the first report telling us how bad things are. This is the 50th. So what do you expect to be done now?
Good morning, Laura. Thanks for having me on. Firstly, I'd like to offer my heartfelt apologies to the families of those who have lost loved ones to ADF or veteran suicide, and just say I'm sorry. I'm sorry you've gone through this. This is, like you said, another report that's happened, but this is the first Royal Commission, and this gives some pretty clear outlines on what the Royal Commission interim report expects from the government, which includes, getting DVA to be telling the government and telling the minister what they actually need, instead of having a government telling them what they're going to get. I think this is important because there is an extreme backlog that needs to be dealt with. 42,000 claims, in a backlog is far too much, and it's causing much angst within my community and throughout the wider veteran community. We have
to talk about these claims as well, because it's not just compensation claims, simple things like medical bills not being paid. A lot of this happened under the tenure of your government over the last 9 years. Can you explain why that happens? Is it, that there's just a backlog there because there's not enough staff, or are the claims not being believed? What is it?
I think it's multifaceted, and the reports, interim reports, are pretty clear on how these. There's far too many claims, and it was through a time that I was in government and previously. We've got high turnover of staff within the department. We've got bills, like you said, not being paid on time. We've got contractors who are going out on whether it's cleaning or yard work that aren't getting paid. And then you've got people that are putting in claims that are taking, more than a year to get processed. And, we're talking mental health claims, we're talking knee injuries, we're talking all sorts. We need more staff put on there, as we spoke about, I think, in my first couple of months being elected 4 years ago. There needs to be action, and everyone wants to talk about, and every government talks about the record investment. Well, let's not talk about record investment. Let's go to the department and say, what do you need to fix this problem? And then we'll get on, and then just get on with it.
Absolutely. But, Phil, I've got to say that every time a budget is handed down, and this happened for 9 years under your government, where the cuts are made, they're always cut with efficiency dividends for the departments. They've got to cut back on staff or contractors. You've got to admit that in many ways that has led to what we're reading today.
I take responsibility for every single claim that hasn't been processed, every single person that has succumbed to their war within and died by suicide with time in my office. I think it's a failure of mine that I haven't been able to push harder and make things happen quicker. I think it's a failure of every single politician, regardless of what colour shirt they wear. They have failed. We need to be better, and the way that we will be better is by actioning these recommendations in a timely manner. I speak to families. They're my mates. My mates are the ones that have died by suicide. These are people that I call family. It breaks my heart that we're still going through this, and we haven't learnt from past lessons from decades and decades ago.
Phil, I know that you feel the weight of this, and I know that you've had friends that have died by suicide. Reading this report today, I mean, it's got to be the last report that we need, surely.
It has to be, and it's tough to read, not just this one, but know that there's been so many previously. And I've been to more than 12 funerals in the last 5 years of people that I call brothers, my mates, fathers, sons, dads. Australia's buried far too many of their brave men and women, and we need to just action it. And I know there's time frames on this. I'd love the government to work closely with me and the others to try and implement it quicker, to get involved quicker. there needs to be allocation in the budget, pretty much a blanket allocation of whatever's needed, because I hate it with a passion, hearing of the sad stories where we're burying our loved ones and burying our most bravest who have served our nation.
Phil, 12 funerals is just, I can't even fathom how you've dealt with that. But can I ask you, were they all men?
Yes, yeah. But there's been female soldiers, aviators and sailors that have succumbed to their war within and died by suicide as well. These are people that I've served with that are close to me, who have been my mates' blokes that who have died.
Phil, this report talked about the transition back into civilian life. How hard is that after you've been on multiple tours, particularly after the war in Afghanistan, a war that dragged on for 20 years?
It's hard. Transition is hard. And I know they're putting things in place to be better, but when you're in, you're part of the tribe, you're part of the family. And then when you're out, you feel separated from that family, from that tribe. And when you leave defence, there has to be purpose. There has to be something that you love to do, something that you want to get up in the morning and achieve, whether it's employment or volunteering or something. Because without purpose, that's the dark hole I went into, and I easily could have been a statistic if it wasn't for close friends and my wife, Jenna. Transition is so key to either being successful in life, or in living life, or being a statistic. And that's a key element that needs to be better.
One thing, before I let you go, that did shock me is that it's not just returned soldiers. We are talking about Defence Force personnel that have never been on tours of duty, have never entered a war zone. So this is new to me. It might not be to you, but there's something going on with the culture within Defence in Canberra.
Yeah, definitely. And there needs to be a resilience piece that has to be focused on throughout this period as well. We want people to understand that and to know that it's okay not to be okay. It's not okay to suffer in silence. And just because, like, I've got a mental illness, I've been diagnosed with a mental illness, but I function well and I can still live my life and achieve and do this because I've had those people around me that's built my resilience up. We need to have a package like that in Defence that is working with our young men and women to show that they're the rubber band. You can fall over, that's fine, but we need you to bounce back up and grow and be better and and thrive at life. And I think that's what needs to be focused on. It needs to insource its veterans back into Defence because they're the people that have been through the hard times, bounced back up and are now going well, to show that it can be done and we must work together because we shouldn't be losing any of our brave men and women.
Phil, thanks so much for sharing that with us, that you do have a mental illness and that you have been diagnosed, because to be honest, mate, I couldn't tell. We wouldn't be able to tell. So thanks so much for opening up, and we're going to talk about this again soon.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Phil Thompson there, live from Townsville.